Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Clemens, and I'm going to be reviewing with you The Outsiders so that you guys will be prepared for your test. So, in chapter 1, I'm going to go through and break it down chapter by chapter. Our Outsiders book is narrated by our main character, Ponyboy. Okay, he's the youngest one of the Curtis boys. The story does take place in Tulsa, Oklahoma during the 1960s. So this first chapter really introduces Ponyboy along with the Greasers. So he gives himself, introduces himself and gives a brief history of his family. He also describes the relationships between the gang members. The relationships with his own family. So within the gang, there is Ponyboy, and then there's Soda Pop and Derry, who are his two other brothers. Then there's Johnny, there's Two Bit, there's Dally, and there's also Steve. Ponyboy's parents were killed in an automobile accident, and so it left his oldest brother, Derry, to take care of him and Soda Pop. He's the youngest at 14, Soda Pop is 16, and Derry is 20. Okay. Ponyboy kind of resents Derry because the fact that he is a lot more strict than his parents were. And so Soda Pop is kind of like that middleman. Their gang is considered to be a family, okay? They look out for their own. All of these guys come from dysfunctional homes, and so they rely on one another. In this chapter also, as Ponyboy walks home alone after going to a movie, he realizes the danger, okay? He should not be walking alone. He also explains to the reader that he is a greaser, a term that is used to classify all the guys on the east side, which is the poor side of town, okay? Greasers are known for their long, greasy hair. They wear a lot of times jeans, white or black t-shirts with leather jackets. The other group that opposes them is called the Socias, okay? And it's short for social. Sorry, I can't talk today. They are from the west side, and they are the rich kids. Ponyboy explains in this chapter also that gangs are just small bunches of friends who stick together, and the warfare is between the social classes. And you'll see a big difference with the Greasers and the Socias and how they dress. So in chapter 2, Pony and Johnny meet up with Dally, and they go to the nightly drive-in movie theater. And they sneak in because Dally doesn't like to do anything legal. Once they're inside, they find two Socias, and these two Socias are Cherry and Marcia. They are girlfriends to Bob and Randy. And the girls kind of left their boyfriends behind because they didn't want to be around them while they were drinking, okay? Dally sees them, and they become the target of nasty and rude comments. He decides to buy them some soda to cool them off, and Cherry gets upset by this, so she throws the soda in Dally's face. And then Johnny steps in to defend her, which is really surprising to Ponyboy and Dally because he worships Dally, and he is the quiet one of the group, okay? Two Bit eventually joins Ponyboy and Johnny. And actually, Two-Bit and Marcia kind of hit it off because Marcia just lets things roll off of her shoulders. Cherry is really impressed with Johnny's courage, but she senses something else in Johnny. So she quizzes Ponyboy about Johnny when they go to the concession stand. And Cherry's accurate assessment that Johnny's been hurt bad prompts Ponyboy to retell the story of Johnny getting beat up by the Socs. And pretty much what had happened was Johnny was out in the field hunting for a football because they were going to play. And some Socs drove by in a blue Mustang, and they stopped, saw him by himself, so they jumped him, beating him half to death. And one of the Socs wore rings, and those rings really cut up Johnny's face pretty badly. The beating wasn't what had changed Johnny. It was the fact that they had scared him. So he never walked alone anymore, and he vowed that he would kill the next person who jumped him. So he started carrying a switchblade with him. The story of Johnny's beating upsets Cherry, and she tells Ponyboy that not all Socs are like that, just like all greasers are not like Dally. She tells him that the Socs have their troubles too, but Ponyboy at this point can't imagine what worries a Soc might have. And the chapter concludes with, "I know better now." In chapter 3, the movie comes to an end, and the guys decide to walk the girls home. Actually walk to Two-Bit's home first to get the car, and then they were going to drive the girls home, trying to be nice. As they are walking, Cherry decides to talk to Ponyboy a little bit and talk to him on what actually separates the gang. Not only money, but passion. She said the Socs lack strong emotions. They are cool to the point of almost not having any emotions. Ponyboy is amazed at how similar the two gangs really are, that they share a basic sameness. However, the two groups' emotional responses to life are different, okay? Which means the greasers are over-emotional. They get upset over little things where the Socs don't feel anything. As they are walking, the greasers are walking with the Soc girls. A blue Mustang passes, and the girls realize that it's Bob and Randy, their boyfriends. Pony complains about Derry, and he knows that Derry does not like him. Two-Bit and Johnny are stunned by this conversation, and they can't believe that Ponyboy made this statement. They defend Derry, which upsets Ponyboy, so he attacks Johnny about his own terrible life. The blue Mustang returns. The two Socs get out, and Ponyboy notices that one of them is wearing rings. And so he puts it together that that group was the one that attacked Johnny. So he stands there kind of like terrified. And they are going to get ready to fight, but Cherry doesn't like fighting, so she put a stop to it, and the girls wound up leaving with the Socs. Sorry, I don't know what was going on there. So after the group breaks up, Johnny and Pony decide that they are going to continue to hang out. So they were going to hang out in the lot. Pony's curfew is midnight, but he wound up falling asleep, and when he wakes up, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And he realizes he's going to be in big trouble. So when he gets home, Derry's up and waiting for him. and they start arguing. And in the heat of the moment, that's when Derry decides and instantly regrets hitting Ponyboy, because he has so much pressure of raising the two boys of his own and worrying that it just got the best of him. So this makes Ponyboy really think that Derry doesn't like him. And so he runs out of the house and he plans on running away. Pony heads back to the vacant lot and he wakes Johnny up and tells him it's time for them to run away. So Johnny is trying to calm him down and points out that Pony is lucky to have a family that cares about him, and that the gang members take care of each other. They walk to the park, and then after Ponyboy cools off a little bit, they decide it's time to go home. In chapter 4, as they were getting ready to head home, they decide to stop at the park a little bit, and they hear a horn from a car, and they realize that it's the Soches, and they realize it's Bob and Randy, Cherry and Marcia's boyfriends. They don't have time to run, they don't have time to get away, and they are just by themselves. The Soches get out and they threaten the boys. The boys kind of go back and forth, kind of bantering. And Johnny winds up pulling out his switchblade for self-defense, because the boys, the Soches, grab Ponyboy and they start drowning him, putting his head in the fountain to the point where he is gasping for air. And so that totally freaked Johnny out. So Johnny tried to defend him, and he winds up killing Bob. When Pony wakes up, he realizes that Johnny's sitting there with this knife, and he says, "I killed this boy." He's full of blood, holding the switchblade. Pony sees Bob lying there in a pool of blood, and he gets sick. Johnny is super cool there and says, "Hey, we need to get money, a gun, and a plan." So he turns to Dally for help. So they go to Buck Merrill's place, where he knows that Dally would be. Dally gives them $50, a gun, gives them warm, dry clothes for Pony, because Pony was soaking wet from being drenched in the fountain. And he gives them a plan. And this plan is he has to hop a train. They have to hop a train to Windricksville and hike up a mountain and then stay in this abandoned church for about a week until he comes for them and tells them that everything is okay. So once they get to the church, they realize that Johnny really did kill Bob, and they were running for their lives. They had to get supplies, so Johnny goes and gets supplies and returns with some food, like bologna, candy bars, cigarettes, soap, peroxide, a deck of playing cards, and a book, Gone with the Wind. Okay, because he remembered that Ponyboy had liked it. In an effort to blend in and disguise their appearances, Johnny tells them that they have to cut and dye their hair. Ponyboy, because Johnny is too dark complected. So Johnny cuts and bleaches Ponyboy's hair, and then Ponyboy cuts Johnny's hair. So they are in the church for about a week, and they pass the time by playing poker and reading Gone with the Wind. Finally, after that 5 days is up, Dally shows up. And as I'm reading this, I just noticed that I have this on here twice. So sorry, guys. So once Dally gets there, he takes them to Dairy Queen to tell them the plan and tell them kind of what's going on. That the greasers and the Socs are having an all-out war now, and it's kind of dangerous for people to walk by themselves. And they also have a secret weapon, Cherry Valance. Okay, chapter 6. Johnny announces that he is going to turn himself into the police because it wasn't fair to Ponyboy or Derry or Soda Pop. And he said that it was self-defense. I'll have a good chance of getting out early. So driving back from Dairy Queen, of course, Dally is upset by this, and they see that the church is on fire, and there's a group of kids that are standing, or people around the church, and apparently the kids were having a picnic, like a field trip type of thing. And one of the teachers realizes that some of the kids are missing, and they hear some screams, and boys looked at each other, and they realized that the kids are in the church. So both Ponyboy and Johnny run to the burning church. They leap through a window to search for the kids. There was an older man, and his name was Jerry Wood, follows them, but he was unable to get through the window. So the boys find the kids and hand them out through the window. Dally is outside on the scene now, and he is like warning Ponyboy and Johnny to get out because the roof is starting to cave in. Johnny shoves Pony out. The roof collapses. Pony blacks out because he's on fire, and Dally hits him kind of like really hard on the back. And Dally goes back inside for Johnny. When Ponyboy regains consciousness, he hears sirens. So he sure thinks that he is going to be heading to jail, okay, like he's in a police car. But he is actually in an ambulance with Jerry Wood and tells them that they are heading to the hospital, that Dally was burned on his arm, and Johnny is by far in the worst condition, possible broken back and really bad, like 3rd-degree burns. He tells them that they are considered to be heroes for saving the children, which surprises Ponyboy because nobody ever calls the greasers heroes. While they're at the hospital, the doctors examine Ponyboy, and he's fine except for a few burns. Once Derry and Soda Pop get to the hospital and he sees that Derry is crying and upset, he realizes that Ponyboy, he realizes that Derry does care for him and that he probably should give him a break because he is looking after him. So he's not only the brother now, he had to take on that role as a parent, like a father figure, which is hard for a 20-year-old to do. Chapter 7. So in chapter 7, Derry manages to convince the doctor that they are the only family that these two boys have, meaning Dally and Johnny. So he gives them the bad news. Dally's one arm is severely burned, but Johnny, his back is definitely broken, and I say if he lives, he will not be able to walk for the rest of his life between his broken back and then his 3rd-degree burns. So they were able to take Ponyboy home, and the next day Ponyboy wakes up and is making breakfast because that was the rule. First person to get up had to make breakfast. And Steve and Two-Bit stop by. And they tease Ponyboy about being a hero and show him the newspaper. And the news coverage is actually very positive. And it says that the boys should be allowed to stay together. Ponyboy isn't feeling well. And Derry wanted to miss work, but Two-Bit said, hey, you need to go to work. I'll stay with him. So they decide to go and visit Dally and Johnny. As they are walking, a blue Mustang appears, and it is Randy. And Randy actually asks to speak to Ponyboy. And he actually asks him, hey, why did you bother to save those kids? Because I don't think I would have. And he says, I can't believe that a greaser would do anything like that. And so Pony tries to explain, hey, it wasn't a greaser or a sausage issue. It was like saving a person's life. And he also tells Ponyboy that he does not plan to fight in this big rumble that is going to happen. And that, you know, there's no good that's come of fighting. And by the end of this conversation, they are no longer just a soch or a greaser to one another. They actually have a name. Chapter 8. So in Chapter 8, Two-Bit and Ponyboy arrive at the hospital, but the nurses wouldn't let them see Johnny. But the doctor says, hey, let him visit because it can't hurt now. So the boys go in and they talk to Johnny a little bit, and he tells Ponyboy that he's afraid of dying. He says that 16 years is not enough living and that it is not fair. Johnny's mom shows up to visit him, but he refuses to see her. And he actually tells the nurse he says, tell her to leave me alone. He gets real upset and worked up by the fact that his mom came to the hospital. And so Ponyboy and Two-Bit had to leave because he passed out cold. So after they visit Johnny, they decide to visit Dally. He's still he's still his old self, kind of like Henri. And he's very upset by the fact that he cannot be in the rumble. And he asks Two-Bit for his black-handled switchblade, and that's Two-Bit's prized possession. But if Dally asks for something, you give it to him. Pony says he has a really bad feeling about the rumble, and he tries to tell this to Two-Bit, but Two-Bit doesn't want to understand because that's all he knows is, fighting. He tries to accuse Ponyboy of being a chicken, but he defends himself and says, hey, I am not a chicken. I just had this awful feeling that something bad is going to happen. They wind up meeting Cherry Valance at the vacant lot, and they speak about the rumble. So Cherry gives them the rules and says that there is not going to be any weapons. So then Pony's like, well, hey, since you're here, do you think you can go visit Johnny in the hospital? And she says, no, I can't. I understand that Bob was a jerk and that, but Johnny killed my boyfriend. And she's like, it just wouldn't be right. So with that, Pony wasn't real happy because he thought things were starting to change between the Socs and the Greasers, but in reality, they really weren't. So the rumble here is set for 7 o'clock that night. Pony decides to take 5 aspirin because he's feeling so bad. He knows he's not going to get through this rumble without them. So as they gather at the vacant lot, Pony compares the other Greasers to his own gang. His gang never uses weapons and has never really hurt anybody. And Pony realizes that his gang are not hoods, that they don't belong with a lot of these future convicts that he sees there. And he also realizes that his brother Derry has the potential to be successful in life, but he has put his life on hold. Just as the rumble begins, sorry for the J, I don't know where it went. Daly shows up. And so he kind of checked himself out of the hospital because he was not going to miss this. And so him and Ponyboy during this whole rumble kind of team up and help each other because he's injured. Ponyboy's not feeling good. After fighting a bit, the Socs wound up retreating. The Greasers win. And that's all that matters to them. So after the rumble, Daly grabs Ponyboy and says, hey, we have to get to the hospital. Johnny is dying. So he is driving super, super fast, and he gets pulled over by the police. So Daly is able to point to Ponyboy and say, hey, look, he got hurt. I'm rushing him to the hospital. So the police officer actually believes him and gives him an escort. This is actually one of my favorite parts from the movie. Daly and Ponyboy make it to the hospital just in time. Johnny is dying and is not impressed at all that the Greasers won. All he said was useless. Fighting's no good. He asked to speak to Ponyboy. So the last thing that he says to Ponyboy is, stay gold, Ponyboy, stay gold. And that's based off of the poem that Ponyboy recited when they were hiding out at the church. When Johnny dies, Daly bolts out of the room because he is just so upset by Johnny's death that he has not loved anything other than Johnny, and so he could not take it. Ponyboy is in denial about Johnny's death, keeps repeating he's not dead. So he kind of leaves the hospital and roams the street until a stranger picks him up and drops him home. So once he gets home, he tells the rest of the gang about Johnny's death, and everyone is silent. He also tells them that Daly is going to blow. And just as he says that, like, the phone rings and Daly says, hey, I just robbed a store and I need somewhere to hang out, like hide. And so they were going to meet him at the vacant lot. And on the way there, as they're running, the cops catch up with him. He pulls out a gun. Now, Ponyboy knows that this gun is not loaded because he says, hey, I'm only carrying this gun for a bluff. But the police don't know that, okay? So he pulls out his gun because he wants to die and he gets his wish. He's gunned down as all of the Greasers watch. And they always said, whatever Daly wants, he gets. As all of this is happening, Ponyboy is starting to feel worse and worse and worse. And with all of this that happened between Johnny dying and then Daly getting shot and killed right in front of him, he collapses, and the gang rush to help him. Once he wakes up, he doesn't remember being in the hospital or being unconscious, but he was unconscious for like 3 days. But he does remember that Johnny and Daly are both dead. Derry tells him that he had been suffering from exhaustion, shock, and a concussion, and that concussion came from the rumble. Soda and Derry spend every moment by Pony's bedside. And now, because of what happened, their future is really uncertain. Okay, is the court going to let them stay together? Pony's missed a lot of school. He's missed track. And there's a chance that he would be put into a boys' home. So chapter 11, Pony is confined to bed for a week. He's still trying to like recuperate. He's looking through books. He finds old yearbooks and he sees a picture of Bob Sheldon. And he recognizes the boy, but he needs a moment to realize that this is the Bob whom Johnny killed. And he tries to imagine what Bob would have been like and kind of wonders how his parents are handling this. Derry comes in and tells him that he has a visitor, and it's Randy. And Randy says, hey, I'm here because Cherry heard his name on the bulletin board at school with him being absent and all, and that everyone involved in Bob's killing has to see the judge the next day. So he wanted them to talk and make sure that they were all telling the truth. And Randy also tells him that he regrets his involvement in the fight because it kind of let his dad down. Pony tells Randy this fear, and Randy invites him to tell the truth. He continues by stating that Pony isn't guilty of any crime and Johnny was the one who wielded the knife. At this pronouncement, Pony Boy erupts, I had the knife, I killed Bob. So at this point, Randy's confused and continues to correct Pony Boy and assure him that Johnny killed Bob. Derry explains to Randy that the doctor has said that Pony Boy is still suffering mentally and emotionally and that only time will heal. The hearing with the judge wasn't what Pony had expected. Everyone except Pony was able to tell the judge what had happened that night. Pony is only questioned about his home life. So the judge listens to everybody and closes the case, and Pony Boy is acquitted. The things are not back to normal at home because Pony Boy is having a hard time getting back to normal. He's forgetful, he's clumsy. He starts fighting again with Derry. One afternoon, Pony, Two-Bit, and Steve walk over to the gas station, and Two-Bit and Steve go in, and a carload of Socs drive up, and three of them get out of the car, and Pony Boy just kind of stands there feeling nothing. He's not scared, he's not mad, and they're like, hey, you're the one that killed Bob. And so in a split second, Pony grabs a bottle, breaks it, and threatens to split them if they don't get back into their car. He's like, listen, I can't take any more from you guys, just leave me alone. And that kind of like shocks Two-Bit and Steve for a second. And then they see Pony picking up the broken glass and realize he's still the same Pony. Things are going to be okay. Pony's English teacher assigns him a theme, which is like an essay. If he does well on it, he would give him a C because right now he was failing. The topic had to be Pony's choice, and the theme, the essay, had to be providing an overwhelming task for him to accomplish. And him and Derry's fighting over schoolwork, and that is getting worse. And they bring Pony in, or Derry and Pony bring Soda into the fight and kind of ask him to choose. And Pony, Soda gets upset and he runs out of the house. And so the boys look at each other like, what the heck's going on? And so they chase him down to the park, and Soda's like, listen, I can't stand this anymore. You put me in the middle and you guys don't understand one another. And he was like, listen, you guys, we should all be sticking together, and we're tearing each other apart. All we have is each other. And he also brings up the fact that nobody listens to him. He was going through a rough issue with his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, Sandy, and he had to listen to everybody's problems, but nobody was there for him. So the boys agreed not to fight any longer. At home, Pony cannot take or make himself work on his theme. So he picks up the book Gone with the Wind that the hospital gave him, that was Johnny's, and this note falls out. And Johnny writes that he had figured out what that poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay, what it really meant, and that one should not take things for granted, that everyone needs to continue to look at the world as if it is it is brand new in order to appreciate it. He also writes that Pony still has plenty of time to make something of himself. There's plenty of good in the world, and that Pony should tell Dally these ideas as well. I see that it copied again. I have no idea what's going on there. Sorry, guys. I'll have to fix that. So Pony decides that he's going to write his paper kind of like on his life and the greaser's life and what it's like to be a greaser. And so he starts out the book the same way as he ends it. Okay, as I stepped out into the dark movie house, that line, that's called a full circle ending, when a story starts the same way as it ends, and it's to give more emphasis to the point that they're trying to make. So he realizes that, hey, I'm going to be okay. So this next slide here is just a bunch of vocabulary. A lot of the vocabulary in the text we don't use very often. So I figured you guys might want to look at this in case you didn't know what some of these words meant. And that's about it. I really hope you guys enjoyed the book. Sorry if you heard noises and that behind. That was my animals. It's kind of crazy here. And sorry I had some typos on my PowerPoint. I thought I fixed them all. So I will get those fixed, and I hope you guys enjoyed the book, and good luck on your test.